Across the country continue to struggle to find employees. They're not stopping efforts to find a solution. And WGEM's Madison Norris joins us to talk about what employers are looking to change. Madison.
McKinsey John Wood Community College hosted a Future of Workforce Training and Retaining Symposium earlier today. The school partnered with local and state manufacturers and the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center. There, they educated employers and allowed industry leaders to pitch their ideas to better attract workers.
The workforce is the foundation of their operation. That's the heart and soul of the things that they're making and then the products and processes they're providing.
Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center Vice President of Marketing, Christy Johns, says tactics to find talent and efficiently train employees aren't all that manufacturers should be looking to improve.
Happy employees and happy workers make for a really happy place to work, but it makes for better quality, better productivity, and more efficiency when it comes to the job they're doing.
Other panel topics dove into diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some experts encouraged companies to look into broadening their search to include non-traditional candidates. But Illinois Manufacturing Association Vice President of Education and Workforce Policy, Sarah Hartwick, says before the trades can recruit outside of traditional workers, they must change the factory worker narrative.
Is to change the optics of manufacturing careers, that it is no longer dark, dirty, and dangerous, and that it is clean, high-tech, sustainable, and that is a long-term goal. And so starting with events like this, talking to the students, the employees of tomorrow, and making that message clear. I also think at the same time, there are a lot of students who are passionate about manufacturing, but may not even really understand what that means. And so it is even bringing the passion and the dedication to a career back to those students through events like this.
In order to help show employers and potential employees how they have changed the narrative, Knapheide Manufacturing Company is opening their doors to symposium attendees as the Future of Workforce event continues into tomorrow. Madison Norris, WGEM News.
And thank you, Madison. And Hartwick says everyone in the community plays a vital role in helping support the local economy, especially manufacturers. And that's why she says events like this are crucial to help find workers.